introduce us. We are Jason and Tina Eubanks. I wanted to open this morning with giving a definition of joy or an explanation of joy. The biblical joy is choosing to respond to external circumstances with inner contentment and satisfaction, because we know that God will use these experiences to accomplish His work in and through our lives, even during times of trials and sufferings. Joy is a choice, as Cade mentioned a minute ago. Joy is an emotion that's acquired by the anticipation, acquisition, or even the expectation of something great or wonderful. The biblical definition of joy says that joy is a feeling of good pleasure and happiness that is dependent on who Jesus is rather than on who we are or what is happening around us. Joy comes from the Holy Spirit abiding in God's presence and from hope in His Word. The reason I wanted to give a definition of joy is my background, I did not grow up in church. So when I did start going to church quite a bit, sometimes there would be a word that we're talking about or studying, and I didn't quite understand it. And I've had people ask me early on, "Hey, I'd love to hear your testimony." I said, "Well, I'd love to hear it too. What is testimony?" I don't even know what that means, So that's the reason I thought let's open up with a description of joy. As I said, my background, I did not grow up in church. I was an only child. Both of my parents were extremely hard workers. Both of them owned their own business. My dad was the owner of a company called Eubanks Backhoe and Ditching Company, and my mother owned a restaurant called the Hitch and Rail Cafe. It was out on the Old Clyde Highway. Both super hard workers, and I'm so thankful that they instilled an unbelievable work ethic in me that I wouldn't trade for. I wouldn't trade for it. But having said that, my sweet mother, she is now a beautiful child of God, and honestly, one of the strongest prayer warriors I know. She is continuously praying for Tina and I and our kids, our grandkids, her and her co-workers at Faith City Ministries. They are beautiful people for sure. Having said that, my childhood, not growing up in church, we did have a church in the area I lived in. It was called Pullman Road Baptist Church. It was a little single-wide trailer house that I did occasionally go to. I ran around with the preacher's kids a lot, but I didn't make it to the church all the time. So anyway, but kind of skipping ahead a little bit, I did get married at the age of 26. I had a little girl at the age of 27, but that marriage failed, and I truly believe that marriage failed because God was not at the forefront of that marriage at all. And now I know how important it is, and I mean, a marriage just won't work without God being at the forefront of it by any means. At that time, I was a single dad with a single kid when I met this beautiful lady. We met at the most romantic place in town, a little sports bar called Hummers. You may or may not have heard of it. Beautiful place. If you haven't been, you should take your wife.
Do not take your wife to Hummers.
We still go there once a week, believe it or not. But that is where we initially met.
So I was raised in what some would call a Christian home in Oklahoma. We lived the perfect life in the church building, and it was so polar opposite at home. Very legalistic, very ugly, unkind at home. My mom left my dad my senior year. Dad cried all the time. The church was not, back in those days, was not very accepting or probably didn't know what to do with divorced families. So pretty much rejected my dad, watched my dad cry all the time. Heartbreaking. And I thought, if this is what God is and this is what church is, I want no part of it. None at all. Was working at a job that transferred me here to Amarillo. I had never heard of Amarillo. I had to pull out a paper map to figure out where Amarillo was. And there was a town called, I thought it was Tuckamacari, come to find out it's Tucumcari. I did not know. A little odd. I've learned over 30 years that it is Tucumcari now. But anyways, moved here, working for that job, ended up in a very scary, ugly situation with a coworker. And I remember telling God, if you're real, and you're all that they say you are, you'll get me out of this situation. Because there was no possible way I could get out of this situation okay. And by his mercy and grace, he did get me out of that situation. And I promised I would never deny him one more day of my life, and I haven't since then. Right after that, I was, of course, at Walmart, because we all go to Walmart, whether you want to or not, they have everything. Ended up in the parking. A guy walked up to me in the parking lot, which is never safe, but he just came up to me and he said, hey, do you have a relationship with Christ? And do you have a church home? And I was like, interesting. So he got me into church, lived great, got my life back with Christ, and he restored the joy of my salvation. Jesus restored all that he had for me, and I'm so very thankful for that. Ended up getting married. Was told by the doctors I could not physically have any children due to some massive trauma in my life. And God, being the amazing doctor, the healer, gave me 4 amazing boys that I would not trade for anything in this world. Very, very thankful that God is way bigger than any doctor on this planet. Years went on. We were blessed to minister at a couple of churches in Amarillo. And my ex-husband decided he didn't want God anymore. He didn't want anything to do with God. He didn't want anything to do with marriage and didn't want anything to do with his children. So we split ways. I was in nursing school at the time with no job, had no idea how I was going to finish nursing school, how I was going to take care of my 4 boys, but I just knew that I just needed Jesus and I just needed my children. No man could fix that. Nothing in this world could fix any part of my life except him. So I remember sitting on the floor in my living room and asking Jesus with my 4 boys, God, I don't know how this is going to happen. I don't know how I'm going to keep a roof over my kids' head. I don't know how I'm going to feed them. I don't know how I'm going to do anything, but I know that you're going to provide because you are the provider of all things, all things. And amazingly enough, the people in the church that we served at last chose to get together, a group of them. To this day, I don't know one name of the people. They got together, collected money, and they paid all of our bills until I finished nursing school so that I could provide for my children. God is amazing to always provide for us when we never know how he's going to do it. He always shows up. In that time, my mother-in-law never walked away from me, never walked away from my children. She is the most beautiful person I know. She worked full-time. My father-in-law worked full-time. It did not matter what I needed for my boys or school or whatever. They always took care of us. They were right there. They were present. And she's always been the hands and feet of Jesus to us. And I know she was not proud when her son and I got married at 20, 21. I'm sure she was not happy that I had 4 boys in 5 years. That was not a great thing, I'm sure. But she never said an unkind word. She never turned her back on us, and she always prayed faithfully for us. Mm-hmm. Shortly, she even stood beside me in the courtroom when I was divorcing her son. She was right beside us at all times, praying over us and loving us.
She's a beautiful lady, such a beautiful lady.
Not many ex-mother-in-laws would do that. And she still, to this day, is a prayer warrior and in our life and loves my husband as much as we do. I know it's a rare moment. So I finished nursing school, thankfully, took my boards, didn't pass. So being raised in my family, my mother had always told me I was the only planned child and the biggest mistake. So I'd heard that my whole life. That always stuck in my head. So I've been rejected by my mom. Now I've been rejected by my ex-husband. Now I'm taking my boards, I flunk. And I'm like, here we go. Rejection again. I'm done. I'll work my 2 jobs. I was working 2 jobs to take care of my kids, and I thought, this is what God's got planned. I'm okay. It's all okay. Got a roof over their heads. I can provide for them now. It's going to be fine. And it was fine. Shortly after that, I met Mr. Eubanks through a mutual friend. It was at Hummers. And she and I were sitting, and I look on over. And she said, who you looking at? And I said, some cute guy with an ugly UT hat. Everybody's got issues. That's his issue. I've tried to turn him into a Sooner for years. It has not worked.
Not going to happen. Thank goodness Texas beat the pants off of Oklahoma this year. It's so sick of hearing about how good they are. love you, honey.
Ugly, so ugly. So y'all pray for him. Anyways, shortly after we met, my stepdad killed himself. He called me, said he couldn't handle life anymore, killed himself. And I remember we had just newly started dating, and he looked at me and he said, it's going to be okay, and I'm going to pray for you. And it was the first time we say all the time we're going to pray for people. We say it, but do we really mean it? In church, I hadn't really seen much of that, but I did in his eyes, and I knew that when he said he was going to pray for me, he meant it, which was so amazing to me. So time passes. He randomly just asks me if I'm going to take my test again for school. And I was like, heck no. My life is good. I'm good. I'm taking care of my kids. I don't need it. And he was like, but you're so smart and you're going to pass. Just take it one more time. Took it one more time, passed it. And I thought it wasn't God's timing yet. And I just needed him to believe in me. I needed somebody to believe in me. He believed in me. And there we were. Lucky Eubanks.
That's right. So as a single guy with or an only child with an only child, you can only imagine the change of life when you meet a woman with 4 boys. I mean, you sit down at a dinner table and it is not the quietest thing you've ever been to.
They were not obnoxious or loud, I promise.
I love them so much. I wouldn't trade for it now, but at that time we were both quite overwhelmed, I'll put it that way.
They seemed loud because it was a pier and beam house, so maybe it echoed some.
Maybe. That might be the case. After that, after Tina and I got together, I wasn't attending church before, but we started attending church all the time. In August of 2012, we were at church at Hillside Christian Church, is where we were attending at the time, and I just got an unbelievable, overwhelming feeling, the Holy Spirit just taking me over that day, and I felt the need right that minute to get baptized. And so I did. I got baptized over there August of 2012. We continued to go to Hillside up until COVID hit. COVID changed things, obviously. When you couldn't start going to church in person, it did get us out of the groove of going for a little while. There was probably about a 6-month period where we just weren't attending, even though they did go back to letting you come back to church. After that, Tina one morning on a Sunday was getting up, getting dressed, and I said, what are you doing? She says, I'm going to church. I said, well, where are you going? I'm going to go to the church at Bushland. I said, okay, can I go with you?
I ain't forcing you.
She said, yeah,
you do
come
you.
on if you want to. So anyway, we started attending here fall of 2020.
Before that, before we got that involved, we were going to church, but it was obvious that we were going to stay together. I was not ever going to get married again, but then God, in his sense of humor, or plan, not sense of humor, he had a plan. He chose this guy. So choosing him meant that I was probably going to have to make some changes in my life. Those changes being, if I let another man in my life near my children, that meant I couldn't have full control of my kids anymore. And that meant if a man is going to be with my kids 24/7, I had to let go and let him have a relationship with my children. That meant he would be allowed to parent them and probably say things to my children that I would not be okay with, or the way that I would say it. So I had to make the personal decision to let someone else in to parent my children and let him have a relationship with them, which was a huge deal. And if we did not agree on something, our kids never knew, because I always wanted them to know that we were a front together. We were a team.
Yes.
In the end, when they're all gone, we're stuck together, so we better still be a team.
That's right.
Before or after.
And I'm so thankful she did let me allow me the ability to parent them. It created such a respect between me and the boys. I have so much respect for them, and they have so much respect for me, I feel like, and it just made for such a great relationship between us, and I'm thankful for that. So thankful for that. I wrote down some examples of the meaning of joy in my life. Joy was God placing the perfect person for me at a sports bar at the perfect time.
You can find Jesus anywhere,
You bet you
obviously.
can. I suggest Hummers if you...
Do not. Do not take your wives there or girlfriends or dates.
But a woman with 4 boys who, people thought I was crazy. I mean, they really did. I had people thinking, what are you thinking?
You were told that
I
numerous
really
times.
was. Like, what? You have lost your mind. You're gonna stay with a woman who has 4 boys? And I said, you better believe I am. They're the most amazing boys I've ever met in my life. You have no idea. Another example of joy in my life, earlier this year, the men's retreat that was in Floydada. Took my son Taylor over here with me, and there is not probably a better feeling than worshiping the Lord with 50 plus men with your son right by your side. Mm-hmm. Tears rolling down all of our faces, tears of joy. I've just never experienced anything like that in my life, and I wouldn't trade for that. Would not trade for that.
Okay.
I did write down here several verses that pertain to joy here. 1 Thessalonians 5:16 says, "Rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus." Romans 12:12, "Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer." 1 Peter 1:8-9 is, "Though you have not seen him, you love him. And even though you do not see him now, you believe in him and are filled with an inexpressible and glorious joy. For you are receiving the end result of your faith, the salvation of your souls." John 16:24 says, "Until now you have not asked for anything in my name. Ask and you will receive, and your joy will be complete." Ecclesiastes 3:12 says, "I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live, that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God." And then finally here, Luke 2:10, "But the angel said to them, 'Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people.'" I just thought those were some verses that stuck out to me about joy.
While I would not wish either one of our stories on any of you, not a piece of my puzzle, I would not trade a day of it, because I got to, throughout every bit of that process, lay everything at Jesus' feet, and he never left me and he never forsake me in any way, shape, or form. He was always with me. And I wanted my kids to know more than anything, when your life stinks and you're going through trials and life is hard, he's never going to leave you. And if you can't say those words, then get in his word and read his word, sing his songs, find him in everything, because he is everywhere and in everything.
Absolutely. Well, this part is not scripted here. I am a huge wrestling fan. Not wrestling like collegiate wrestling, but wrestling. Is. I'm talking like Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, or you go a little further back in my era.
Another flaw of his.
You had the Von Erichs. You had the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. And my absolute favorite was a guy called the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. None better. This guy could talk trash better than anybody I've ever seen in my life. He was just built for talking in front of a camera. He had some great one-liners that I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. One of them is, "I'm a jet flying, limousine riding, kiss stealing, woo, wheeling dealing, son of a gun." He's got a couple more that aren't quite as popular, but another one is, "You may not like it, but you better learn to love it, because it is the best thing going today. Woo!"
What in the world?
Making my wife proud, you can see.
Sorry, pastors.
One more of his lines is that, man, I'm on a roll here. I can't quit.
He thinks he's funny.
I tell her all the time I'm the funniest guy I know. But he says that you may not be the first, but you can be next. Believe it or not, I'm going somewhere with this. You may not be the first one in here that has made the choice to give it to Jesus, to give it all to Jesus, and experience his love, his joy, his peace. But if you do, it truly is the best thing going today, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.